Greetings, all. It's your friendly neighborhood advisor, Alexander Quinn here, and today I'll be telling you about things I wish I knew before starting a business. Uh, so, rule number one is there's a bunch of 80/20 rules, but I'm going to go over a specific one, and it's to only do the 20% of the work that you're good at. This may sound like something that you can't use right away, but right out the gate, you can start using this immediately. Something I kept thinking in the beginning was that I don't have the money for this, I don't have the money for that. And so I tried to do everything myself. And while I did succeed at it, I would have done it differently if I could go back in time. I did taxes myself, I managed properties myself, etc. And what I should have done was to let the professionals do it. I would have had more money in the long run, actually, if I had done it that way. What happens is you have professionals do it and then you learn from them what you can. So if you're going to take on taxes, you should really see how they're doing it and then learn from them and just over time do it, go through the steps until you can do it yourself. And that's when it would be smart to take over from the perspective of doing it yourself. However, if you are truly aiming to invest or run your own business, you don't usually want to take over. So honestly, at that point, it makes sense to keep them doing it because your time becomes more and more valuable after that. Your time becomes worth more per hour than what you would pay them to do it because you should be making moves instead of doing the work yourself. You should be off trying to find another investment, another property, something that's going to increase your income, something that's going to make you $100 an hour or more, etc. So have others do those things, do the things that are not the 20% of topics that you are good at. You do what you're good at and then pay people for the rest, and it will pay off much better. Even if you want to learn on your own, just learn from what professionals do, contractors, everyone, etc. So start off with that and go from there. It also helps you start up a business pretty quickly and easily because you have they take care of making sure all the pieces are in place while you just look at properties, choose the one that you want, and purchase it and save up the money, of course. But as long as you save up the money and have a good credit score, then with real estate at least, then the rest it takes care of itself. I suppose in business in general, the rest takes care of itself, but you don't always need a lot of money or credit score to start up a business. Depends on what you're doing. So rule number two that I want to get into is that there's no such thing as a bad market, or actually, the real rule is time in the market beats timing the market. So, whether or not it's a good or bad time to do anything, I'm going to relate this to real estate again because it's most relevant to that. There is not a such thing as a bad market, or I guess it's kind of a bit speculative. So, if I chose every time I went to purchase a property, realtors, I had top realtors who were smart and knew what they were talking about. And they always said it was a bad market, don't buy. And if I listened to them every time they said that, I would have zero properties and I would not have anything under my business. Nothing would have gotten me started. But every property I purchased worked out really well, and I was able to manage doing just fine. Every property I found within, not every property, but usually I find a property within about 2 weeks that I want to purchase. And that's usually the smart way to go. Even if I waited around for longer, then every month that you wait, you're losing potentially thousands of dollars of income. Think about if I buy a property now versus next month, then let's say it takes 30 years to pay off, especially if it's your first property. Let's say even if you only get one, at the end of 30 years, you don't have to pay rent or the mortgage anymore. So if you purchase the property now, that's 1 month sooner that you can stop paying rent and throwing your money away to whoever, in 1 month sooner that you can actually be putting your money towards purchasing something, etc. Starting a business works like that too. The sooner you start, the sooner you can start making money. So even if you don't have everything you need yet, it's usually smarter just to jump into it, get some experience, do what you got to do, set up things, make connections, and just get moving. The concept of a bad market is interesting. My question that I always ask is, well, bad implies that it's worse than something else and better than something else. So bad implies that it's going to be better later. And can you predict for sure it's going to be better later? And it never was. Each time that I did that, it was not better later. And this wasn't simply luck. It's just where you are on the curve. If it's a bad market, then oftentimes it's getting worse. Everyone knows it's a bad market, so then they don't buy, and that makes it a worse and worse market. If everyone is like, oh, it's a good time to sell, then everyone starts selling their properties because it's a good time to sell, which then makes it a good time to sell. A good example of this is during the pandemic when everyone thought there was a shortage on toilet paper, so everyone bought all the toilet paper, creating a shortage. There wasn't a shortage until people thought there was, and then they made a shortage by making it happen. This is exceptionally true, especially true about markets. Stock markets work like that as well. When people think a stock's going to do well, then they buy in, making it do well. And when they think that it's going to do poorly, they all sell out, making it do poorly. It's all based on speculation and what people think it's worth, and not actually what it will be valued at later on. So a bad market is not really worth it. Studies also show that if you put in $200 a week or $200 a month every week or every month, then the amount of money you would have at the end of your lifetime in the stock market or in any market is very similar to the amount of money you would have if you actually saved it up and waited for the best moments in history to buy in and buy out. So, since the money is close to the same and you're unlikely to predict exactly when you should go in or go out, you probably shouldn't try to time the market. That's also assuming that you are perfect in your assessments and your timing and all of that. That also assumes that those times meet your other needs, that you don't actually need that money or you're not going to do something better with it in the meantime, such as if it's a bad time to pull the money out, but you need the money for something or there's a better investment available, then you need to go and you're not going to have as much money. So, time in the market beats timing the market. And I don't believe in a bad market because it's like if when I was jobless and homeless, then the minimum wage was pretty low. It was around $5 at the time, and the money I took home after taxes was really small. But I needed a job. I didn't care. I just wanted something to put bread on the table, and I actually would have preferred if minimum wage were less because it would have been easier for me to get a job because less people would be working. So even if it's a poor wage or a poor deal, it's like, well, what are you doing elsewise? If you hold on to that money, it loses value from inflation. So I'd rather put that money in now and get some money out, even if it's a poor timing, even if the properties would go up a little bit later. And there's also the factor of if you find a property that's worth it, will you find one next month? Maybe, maybe not. And I don't know if I get lucky or if I just manage to make everything work and just don't. And maybe I'm not even that good at finding deals and I just am good at making it work. I don't know. But when I went to get a property, it was even if the market did better later, I still came out with more money by not waiting however many months it would take because during those months I'm losing thousands of dollars and I had to wait a year in between purchasing properties because of just the laws and guidelines around that as well. You don't have to wait, but if you wait, you get better interest rates. So I'd say there's no bad markets. There's no such thing as a bad market. Time in the market beats timing the market. Tip number 3 is that if you try to get a business, if you try to start up a business or and again, this relates to real estate even more so, but a business in general, then markets and investing are typically forgiving. Now, this does not mean to put all of your money into stocks that might fail because that's not quite forgiving, especially if you are shorting stocks. That's not really forgiving at all. In fact, that's the opposite. What I mean is, if you go into something that looks like it's a good idea and you're actually running something that is supposed to generate revenue later, then usually those types of investments are forgiving. 9 out of 10 self-made millionaires, at least last time I looked at the stats, 9 out of 10 of them were in real estate, and that showed me that the way to move up was in real estate. So I started there, and there are lots of different ways to go about it, and you can be successful so many different ways. That tells me that it's a forgiving market, and it has been a forgiving market. Even when it's not forgiving, it has been quite forgiving compared to if you go into just about anything else. About 99% of businesses ultimately fail, and if you go into real estate, it is much, much lower. So it is forgiving compared to other options out there. So if you're thinking about starting up a business, I recommend real estate. You don't need to do real estate, but whatever you do, make sure it's something you know or something that's safe. So with real estate, since there's so many ways to go about it, and you don't have to do it just the one right way to succeed, that tells me that it's forgiving because there's probably a best way to go about it, or at least best way to go about the three main ways that you can tackle real estate. And since there isn't actually a guide like that, as there is to everything else that we do in life, that means that it's got to be forgiving for people to not like worry too much about it, or for it to not be just like one single uniform way to go about it. So it is typically a forgiving market, and also starting up a business in general is pretty forgiving just because of the way that laws and regulations handle that. It's surprisingly easy to start up a business after failing a business. And there's lots of businesses you can start up without needing a whole lot of money. There's actually a lot you can start up with no money. So, for example, bankruptcy, or I guess stats, when I looked into it as a kid, I noticed that the average millionaire had filed 7 bankruptcies. I thought that was quite interesting because I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know you could just keep taking out loans and trying up businesses over and over again. And Donald Trump also has, I believe, 7 bankruptcies under his belt as of 2025. So that it goes to show that you can fail plenty of times before you succeed, and that the way that things work, the way that markets work and businesses work, is that they are typically pretty forgiving. That doesn't mean that you should necessarily have the mindset to fail, but it does mean that if you go into it sooner rather than later, the sooner you go into it is the better that you're going to reap the benefits. Because if you have to fail first, then you're going to need some time to start making money. Whatever you're going to do, you the sooner you do it, the better. So I recommend you get out there and start at it now. You'd be surprised what you can accomplish. A lot of people succeed by jumping into it, and a lot of people fail simply by not trying. So get out there, get into it. I hope this advice helped. For more tips, please follow, like, and subscribe. Um, Thank you so much, and have a good day.